Well, thank you all for being here, and it's been a year since our last one. How many have been to one of these before? So most of you know how this works, and let's see if we can kind of move the folks out in the hallway. Letty, can we see if we maybe move the folks in the hallway in here? There's just a little bit of noise out there. Okay, I'm sure everybody's out there getting their problem solved, which is probably a good thing. I'm going to take a little bit and show you what we're doing on some things you probably haven't heard before, some things you have. And I'm really going to talk tonight about a group that I think gets forgotten way too often in our city, and that's our children. In our own lives, if we hit on hard times, the one thing we never skimp on is money for our own kids. But somehow we get into government and it's other people's kids, and times get tough, and the services to the children are what gets cut. We need to start to reverse that, and I want to talk about that tonight, how I think we should do it, and then afterwards I'm going to answer every question everybody has on any subject. But let's start with a cause for celebration in our children. How about the Detroit Youth Choir? Oh, is that amazing? You know, you see these young people week in and week out all year working hard, never expecting to get that kind of recognition. Could you imagine being out in California on the stage and they flip on those lights and you're on national TV? And they didn't miss a beat. I just thought they represented us so well, and I was so proud of the Skillman Foundation, the Kresge Foundation, because those kids deserve the $1 million prize. How about that, to come home and get the $1 million? The other thing is, we ought to wish Sharice Woods well. She is in India right now, freshman at Cass Tech, playing in the World Chess Championship. I predict she will be the first African-American woman to be a national master chess player. Some of you might remember I kind of launched her career. Jimmy Settles is here somewhere. He suckered me and said, here, why don't you come play chess with this 8-year-old girl? And she took me to the cleaners 6 years ago. So I never saw anything like it. And so I knew that she was going to be special. But can you imagine representing us at the World Chess Championship in India? This is the kind of talent that we have in this city that we've got to support and we've got to nurture. And we need to do a better job of it. So what can we do to help our children reach their potential? There's a lot of folks in this room have worked on something that we call the goal line. And as I've said many times, I want no part of running the Detroit Public Schools. We have a long history of the mayors messing in schools, and I think Dr. Vitti and Iris Taylor School Board are doing a good job. But what about before and after school? Can we support? And so we started a program, an after-school program, 14 schools in Northwest Detroit, where we pick up the children after school and take them to this beautifully built-out center at the Northwest Activity Center, the kind of space we'd all want our children to go to. It looks like anything they'd find in Bloomfield. And we have 400 children in these after-school programs, and they're getting classes in computers and dance and robotics and swimming. And this is what happens. When they get out of school, they get on the bus right at their school. Their parents get a text. Welcome. Their parents get a text that says your child's on the bus. When they get to the Northwest Activity Center, they get a text saying your child's here. When they're on their way back, they get a text saying they're on their way home. So the parents at all times know where their children are, and we're giving them these kind of advantages. And so Monica Rodriguez is here somewhere, or she may still be keeping track of the 400 kids at the school. But if this continues to work well, next year we're going to do it on the east side, and the year after in the southwest side, to try to create these kinds of advantages. Here's the other thing I want to do. I want us to be able to offer pre-K for every single 4-year-old in the city of Detroit. All right? And so our Detroit delegation in Lansing, our state reps and state senators are fighting very hard on this, and we have a clear plan. The governor is supportive. I've got Republican leaders supportive, Democratic leaders supportive. So far in the chaos up there, they haven't voted the money, but I'm optimistic we're going to get it done in the next month. And my hope is that we can offer next fall, through many of the current Head Start and Great Start providers, the chance for every 4-year-old to have full-day pre-K, because we know what an advantage that is. There's a law in Lansing right now that if you can't read in the 3rd grade, they're supposed to hold you back. Now, I don't think they're going to do that, because it's not just Detroit where they're having trouble reading in the 3rd grade. They're going to be holding back people all across the state. But that, to me, isn't any consolation. If a child can't read by the end of 3rd grade, when they get to 4th grade and they're reading for learning for the rest of their life, they're at a disadvantage. We can start them off at pre-K. And so I want to thank everybody in our Detroit legislation delegation that's helping us, and you're going to be hearing more about this in the next month. Rebuilding the city parks. I know you remember this. In 2013, remember the city of Detroit closed all its parks. Remember what they look like? Think about what this said to our children. We had parks in this city where somebody had taken a lawnmower, cut a strip of grass from the entrance of the park to the swing set. And the children went into the park with grass up to their shoulders. Okay? That leaves a permanent impression on how those children are valued. And so I felt like it wasn't enough to come in and get the grass cut in the parks, which we did the first year. We ought to build first-class parks for our children to show them what they mean to us. And our goal is that we want to have every child in the city within 10 minutes be able to walk or ride to a first-class park, which means all those little neglected parks in the neighborhood we have to pay attention to. Sounds like it's impossible, right? Let me show you what we're doing. We've already rebuilt 53, and we got 60 more. All those little green dots, we're rebuilding the parks, not just Chandler Park and Rouge Park and Palmer Park, but all those little pocket parks. And so this is what it looks like. There was a little Hackett Park in 2016, and there's how it looks today. Right? And there was Stewart Park, and here's how it looks today. All right? Luce Park. These are little parks you never heard of, but they're really important to the people who live around them. Here's how it looks today. We're doing this over and over. Phelps Park, they were stealing the fences before Brad Dick got smart enough to put huge boulders at the borders of all the parks, and now nobody's stealing fences on us anymore. But here's how Phelps Park looks today. Riverside Park, it was closed in 2014. And here's how it looks today. Now, one of the most beautiful parks in the city, and has given the people of Southwest Detroit a riverfront park that's their own. This is what we should be doing. Here's West Riverfront today, and if you haven't seen what's coming, the new Ralph Wilson Park being built on the riverfront in the next 2 years. This is the city I want the children to remember growing up in. Your time in your parks are some of your most special memories. Think about it in your lives. Think back to your childhood memories. How much does being in a park with your family or friends? We're going to make sure that this is what they want. Nothing makes me madder than what happened to rec centers in this city. All right? 20 rec centers closed since the 1980s, and then they were left to be covered over with graffiti. Now we've knocked most of them down. Now, it's not real easy to just go build 20 rec centers. In fact, it's pretty much impossible. But we can't accept the fact these children aren't going to have something to do. And so what do? Well, at least we got one, Kemeny down in Southwest Detroit. We reopened last November with a new gym. And if you haven't seen it, it is absolutely beautiful, and it's the center of activity. So those in Southwest Detroit are happy, but that gave us 12 operated rec centers across the city. We get a number run by our partners. Say Detroit runs Lipke at 7 in Van Dyke. We got partners over at Tyndall. We're going to have Lenox open shortly with Roger Penske over in the Jefferson Chalmers area. But even with our partners, 19 rec centers for a city of 700,000 people doesn't get it done. And so we could have some 10-year plan to build our rec centers. We won't do any good for a 6 or 7-year-old today. But here's what else I know as I go around the city. We got churches all over the city that have gyms, right? Many of you attend them. And those gyms are by and large empty during the summer. And think about what happens. When you go to a rec center, you interact with a play leader, and that's a great thing to have an adult in your life during the day. But when you go to a church, they've got youth ministries, they've got mentoring programs, they've got conflict resolution, they've got people who can become a part of your life. What would happen if you combined summer recreation with exposure to our churches? So I don't know if anybody's ever tried this, but we're about to. And so this is what we're planning to do for the summer of 2020, next summer. Our plan is to extend recreation to 20 to 30 churches across the city. We're announcing this tomorrow. I know we don't have any media here. You can keep it a secret. But we're announcing this tomorrow. But here's how it's going to work. If you're a church or a nonprofit, you have a community center, you have to have your place available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. from June 15th to August 24th next summer. You got to commit your gym to be there so these children know they can go there every day. You need to have indoor activity space that can handle 20 to 60 kids. It could be a big community room. It doesn't have to have basketball hoops on it, but it's got to be enough room to conduct activity. We need a large meal area for dining. Most of these kids will come in the morning and stay till 6. And you're going to have to meet the physical requirements for a child care license. We started these conversations already with community centers and churches. Okay, what will the city do? If you sign up, one, the city is going to fund and hire the play leaders. We will put the play leaders into your center and we will pay for them for the summer. So they'll work for us. You don't have to worry about it. Second, we're going to provide 2 meals every day and a snack. Here's what we found at our rec center. A lot of children in this city depend on the school lunch program during the summer for their only good meal. During the school year. What happens during the summer? And so if we offer 2 meals and a snack every day, we've assured these children are going to get good nutrition through the summer months. So we will provide the 2 meals and the snack, and we'll put $20,000 toward your church if you need to fix the court or you need to buy some equipment. We'll put that in toward capital for your church. Now, how many people here belong to a church that has a gym? Okay? How many people here belong to a church that doesn't have a gym? So you want to know what about you? I want you, if you don't have a gym, to go talk to your pastor. Because your church could partner with another church in the area that has a gym. And you can go in together so that the children from your church, because they're in a partnership with 2 or 3 or 4 other churches, can go to the church's gym. What an idea. How churches working together? Yes. Right? And so what I'm looking for, and I expect to see proposals 2, 3, 4 churches at a time saying we'll go in together. And the way this is going to work is next spring, during the month of April, children from the church will be able to register first for the rec center, and then everybody else in the city will be able to register. So it's in your interest to partner. This is what we're going to see if we can do. And so tomorrow we're making this public announcement. I trust the reporters not to report it tonight. And the proposal will be due in late October. But here's what I think we could do. What if we had 40 to 50 rec centers all across the city available to our children? How does that look as far as a recreation center map? All right? I'm not sure how this is going to work yet because we haven't tried it, but I know it would take 10 years to build rec centers, and I want to provide that opportunity by next summer. The Detroit Promise. I'm not sure anything has mattered more, but we became the first major city in America to say to every one of our students, if you graduate from a high school in Detroit, DPS, charter, private, doesn't matter. You graduate from a high school in Detroit, you have 2 years of community college paid for, or 4 years at a university if you get a 3.0 grade point average. Right now, this month, I just saw the enrollment numbers. 1,400 Detroiters are enrolled in college under Detroit Promise scholarship money. And so our kids know there's downsides to being in Detroit. But what I say to them is, if you're in a number of our suburbs around the edge, you're finding your own tuition. And because it is paid for in part by your property taxes, a little bit of all the property tax growth in the city goes into the scholarship fund. If your child or grandchild is 10 or 12 or 14, they know that scholarship money will be available for them when they get there. So high school is hard for everybody. But it's really hard if you don't think you have any hope. And this is what we want to say is, if what is in your heart, what your ability is to go to college, if you're in Detroit, it's going to be there for you. And so here's how it works. And you should start talking to people in your family who are high school seniors now, okay? 2-year scholarship if you get accepted by a community college, anywhere. 4-year university, 12 Michigan universities have signed up for this. If you have a 3.0 grade point and a 21 on your ACT, and you're accepted at any one of 12 public universities in Michigan, Michigan State, Grand Valley, Eastern, Wayne, etc., your tuition is covered for the whole 4 years. All right? This is what we should be doing. Now, I want people who aspire to college to be able to go to college. There are a whole lot of good jobs and careers out there that don't involve college. We do not have enough people to build all the buildings in this city, the carpenters, the bricklayers, the plumbers, and the like. We don't have enough folks who are chefs in restaurants to keep that going. And so the emergency manager for the schools basically decimated the CTE programs. They were pretty much gone 5 years ago. Randolph was a shell of itself. Bright Hop, Go Lightly, we have, in the last 5 years with corporate support, raised $20 million to outfit all of these with the latest plumbing, electrical operations, culinary operations, and the like. And we now have more than 1,000 students at DPS right now enrolled in these 3 schools. So we're trying to back our children in whatever it is they have in their heart, their dreams, and their talent. And of course, we all know how hard that first job is. And you don't want to be interviewing for that first job after you're out of school. And so we started Grow Detroit's Young Talent. And last summer, 8,200 young people who live in the city of Detroit spent the summer working. How many people here had a family member in GDYT this summer? All right, how did it work out? Good experience, right? It's a lot of fun. And so, for those who don't go to college, there are a lot of job opportunities. That wasn't true 5 years ago, but it is today. And so we've got a program, you're seeing the branding now, Detroit at Work, that's making it easy for everybody to see, how do I get to these jobs? And so part of it was, if we're going to deal with the poverty level of the city, we've got to get jobs here that people with high school degrees who want to work hard and learn some skills can do. And so we went out and recruited things that might sound boring to you. These are good paying jobs. Wolverine Meatpacking Company, 100 jobs over in the Eastern Market area. Then we went to Cardinal Health, that's a distributor of medical supplies, 150 jobs over on Rosa Parks, not far from Henry Ford Hospital. Then Flexingate, who makes the parts for the Ford Bronco. 500 jobs over on the east side of Detroit in an abandoned industrial park. And here's the thing that changed our momentum in attracting companies. When they posted those 500 jobs, 16,000 people showed up and applied. And it sent a message to every company in the Midwest. Detroiters want to work, they're ready to go, this is a good place to locate a business. And that made it a little easier for me to go after the biggest one of all. So then we said, all right, we're going to set up Detroit at Work, and we're going to let all the folks in the city looking for jobs know where these jobs are. We'll make it easy for you. And so whether it's construction or information technology, manufacturing, we're going to help you get there. So we went to the hospitals, and DMC and Henry Ford and St. John said, we need nurse assistants. We partnered up with Focus Hope, and 110 graduates have gone through there, 80 of them already placed in jobs. They're following their dream in medicine. And then we went after FCA, which when we started, nobody thought you were going to land an auto assembly plant in a major city. 10,000 jobs. If you haven't been over there, how fast these guys are going is unbelievable. That's the new plant. It's out of the ground already. They are going to be open December 20. Anybody who doubted them has not been by to see the speed at which they're working. And so to handle all that, Nicole Sherrard Freeman in Detroit at Work, they went from 3 centers to handle the people who wanted to work. They've now opened 8 centers. So we make it easy for our residents to figure out, how do I get tracked into these jobs? So we had more than 200 recruiting sessions for FCA. You see the line out the door. You start out at $17.50 an hour, you're going to make $60,000 a year within a few years. And I'll tell you, for me, the most powerful thing was, and I did many of these myself, is the folks that we saw there, they're not folks coming to these community meetings. They're young people who feel disaffected. They feel like their government doesn't care. They feel like business doesn't care. They feel like they've been left out. And when we stand up and say, we've signed a deal, and before FCA can interview anybody from the suburbs, they have to interview every single qualified Detroiter. Here is the math test you're going to have to pass. Here is the tutoring programs that'll help you get it. We're going to help you get that job. You should see what the reaction is like. My city actually cares that I get a job. And so now, as a result of this, we have set over about 4,000 people who are doing the first wave of interviews. They're going to do the first 2,000 hiring now. And FCA said to us the other day, we're going to hire 3,000 more starting in April. Do you think you could do it again? Because we're so impressed. And so we've increased the number of employed Detroiters more than 20,000 in the last 4 years. And you saw the announcement today. The Census Bureau said poverty in Detroit dropped for the 3rd straight year. But it's not something to celebrate, because it also said we still have the highest poverty rate in America. We've made a lot of progress. We got a long way to go. But it starts with the kids. So there is one area where I feel like we really have not done the job, and that is in dealing with blight in this city. Not a day goes by that I don't see children playing in neighborhoods like this. And we know why it happened. From 2000 to 2013, 260,000 people moved out of Detroit. And they didn't take their houses with them, right? I mean, nobody's experienced anything like that. We had a greater population loss than New Orleans in the year following Katrina. And so we had this massive amount of blight, which we've been struggling with, almost overwhelmed with. And we're continuing to chip away. I'm going to show you what we've done, and I'm going to ask for your help to finish the job. We had extraordinary success in Washington. I beat a path back to U.S. Treasury back and forth so many times, I can't even tell you. $265 million was awarded to us in one segment after another. And I've never seen anything like this. To read the local media coverage, which is just vicious in its description of our demolition program, you would think we can't do anything right. You go to Washington, D.C., we're the finest demolition program in America. EPA has named us the best standards for environmental protection. They send everybody around the country to see us, and they awarded fund after fund after fund till the entire $265 million came to us, and we've worked our way through it. I'll be enormously grateful, but the Obama administration isn't there anymore, and the folks there right now are not likely to re-up with any more money. So, what we accomplished with that was pretty remarkable. 19,100 abandoned houses demolished in the last 5 years. Second largest demolition program in America, Cleveland, took down 3,000. Nobody has had to deal with the magnitude of what we're facing. But that does not allow us to say to our children, you're going to live in these conditions because we aren't good enough to solve it. I don't accept that as an excuse. So question then becomes, this we say, well, you knock the house down, the lot's just gets overgrown, it's filled with weeds, if you really helped anything. So we set up this side lot program where we sell the side lot to neighbors for $100. You can go onto the internet, put in your credit card, we'll send you the deed. 13,000 people bought the side lot after we demolished the house. And all across the city, you see what they're doing. They're enlarging their properties, they're putting in a garden, right? They're creating neighborhood parks. We took the property and put it in the hands of the Detroiters who stayed and let them get control of the property next to it. And of course, we just didn't demolish it. We set up our website, buildingdetroit.org, and we've sold or renovated 9,000 vacant houses, moving families in across the city. When you knock down the 2 burned out houses on the block, you can sell the 2 beautiful brick houses that are left. That's what we've learned over and over. 19,000 down, 9,000 sold or renovated. In any other city, the job's done. We're only halfway there. But I love driving. I got little charts in my car, and I go down and say, that's how that looked a few years ago, and this is how it looks today. And that house in Rosa Parks was going to be demolished, and here's how it looks today. We can save these houses. There's a lot of good houses that people have given up on that are becoming assets to the neighborhood. This is what we've done 9,000 times in saving these houses. And so it's progress. Now, I haven't been to a single meeting, and I still once a week sit in somebody's living room or backyard. I have yet to come to a single house meeting where somebody did not say to me, when are you going to get this abandoned house down? It is still the most burning issue on people's minds. So, we've done some good things. We've had enormous benefits. The fires in this city, we used to have 100 building fires a week. Now we have 50. The vast majority of building fires are in abandoned houses. And so what that allowed us to do last year, which some people were a little nervous about, this nonsense about Devil's Night, Angel's Night, we canceled it. And I know some people had a hard time giving it up. Here's why I felt strongly about it. I've been interviewing kids at times. They come from Morehouse, they come from Howard, they aren't from Detroit, they come in for an interview. And they say to me, when the Detroiters come to college, they tell us a story that at Halloween, everybody's so scared, there's cars around with flashing lights to make sure their houses don't burn down. That's the story our children tell about the city they grew up in when they leave. I said, I don't want these children to have memories of these vans with these flashing yellow lights. I don't want them to be scared on Angel's Night or Devil's Night. So we aren't talking about that stuff anymore. So last year, we said we're canceling it. The fires have been cut in half. People said, oh my God, it's going to be a disaster. Well, you know what happened. 30,000 children enjoyed the first Halloween in the D. Fire stations and police precincts, they weren't out on alert, they were passing out candy to kids. How do you like that idea, a Halloween with our young people interacting with the police and the firefighters? The parks and rec centers all got activated. These are the memories we want our children to have of growing up in the city of Detroit. It's the memories many of you have from your childhood in this city. But here's the problem. We were never going to get ahead of the blight problem if we didn't stop the foreclosures. And I'll show you why. 2015, Wayne County foreclosed on 9,000 occupied houses in Detroit. Not 9,000 houses, 9,000 houses that had people in them. Now think about this. If you're pushing 9,000 people out of houses, you got 9,000 new vacant houses. How do you ever get on top of the blight problem? And so we said, we have to go at this problem. We have got to keep people in their homes, or we do not have a future. And so we went at it hard, because I was tired of these yellow flyers, as you all are, all over the city every spring. And so I did a number of things. One, I stopped Kevin Orr's order that said if you were late in your water bill on one of your property taxes, they could foreclose on you for a water bill. I just stopped it. I didn't think people should lose their house over their water bill. Second, we had block clubs across the city volunteered their time. Vicky Cavari on our side organized with UCHC, knocked on doors and took the address of everybody in danger of foreclosure, said, here are your options. And we went up to Lansing. And I led the effort with a state rep at the time by the name of Phil Kavanaugh, passed House Bill 5882, because at the time, if the treasurer wanted to give you a payment plan, by law, he had to charge you 18% interest. Who in the world needs an 18% interest loan? So we got the law passed to allow them to do 5 years at 6%, and 15,000 people the first year signed up for a payment plan and stayed in their houses. And then we went farther than that. UCHC, Bedrock, Land Bank. Here's what we found. Most of the occupied houses that were being foreclosed on were rentals. The tenant was paying their rent every month. The landlord wasn't paying their taxes. They were pocketing it. The tenant doesn't know anything about this foreclosure until somebody sticks the yellow plastic bag on their door. And so Dan Gilbert, of all people, came up with this idea. And he said, you're looking at this all wrong. You've got a tenant in the house already. They're writing a check every month. We need to figure out how to take the house away from the landlord who's not paying and give it to the tenant. Let the tenant be a homeowner and build homeownership in the city. And so between the Home Again program, the Land Bank buyback program, we get to do these events all the time, and it is so powerful. The last one, I had a mom of 3 kids who had been bouncing from rental property to rental property. She was paying her rent all the time. She found out she could make the house payment and the taxes for $200 a month less than she was paying in rent. And now she doesn't have to worry about telling her children, you're going to have to switch schools because I might be evicted. So there's a lot we had to do. How did it work out? Well, as I told you, 2015, 9,000 occupied houses were foreclosed on. The next year when we started, it went down to 5,000. And then in 2017, it went down to 1,900. Then last year, down to 800. And this year, we're down to 514. We have reduced occupied foreclosures 94% in 4 years. And this number is going to go down further because right now UCHC and our teams are going out. We still have 100 tenants out of that 514, and we're going to knock their doors the next 2 weeks, and we're going to pitch them one more time. And we're going to try to keep everybody in this house. So, okay, now we're down to 500 foreclosures. Now we're going to have to make a decision as a community. Are we going to wipe the blight out of this city once and for all or not? The federal money winds down. $265 million, we got the 19,000 houses down. It helped us be in a situation we could rehab or sell 9,000 more. We've taken care of 28,000. We still have 19,000 more demolitions to go and 8,000 more houses we think can be saved. Now, we know we did 19,900 the last 5 years. We know we can finish the job in the next 5 years, but we need a way to pay for it. And Donald Trump isn't coming to help. All right, that's just the reality. And so we, as the adults in the city, are going to have to decide whether we say to our children, we're going to face up to this or not. And so here's our plan. We're going to need $250 million. These houses are expensive to knock down. And the city's been saying this for 50 years. You can't see this. City fights vacant house menace, a huge commitment. Mayor and city council promised they would get abandoned houses out of the city of Detroit. If you can't see the date, it's July 1, 1965. Jerry Kavanaugh promised they'd get rid of the abandoned houses. This city has not, in more than 50 years, ever faced up to the cost of getting this done once and for all. And so we're going to have a choice now. We can continue to do what they've done for the last 50 years, or I think we can solve it. And so that means to raise $250 million, it means we need to have a bond sale. Now, if the city of Detroit had talked about selling bonds 4 or 5 years ago, coming out of bankruptcy, Wall Street would have laughed at us, right? I mean, who would loan the city of Detroit money? The darndest thing has happened. In the last 5 years, our credit rating has been upgraded 3 times. Dave Masser, our CFO, has started the Wall Street conversations. And those in New York are saying, we can't imagine a better investment in the future of your city, your property values, your services, than getting rid of this blight. They actually think it makes sense to do this. We're going to be able to sell these bonds. We couldn't have conceived of that a few years ago. Here's the next thing. Your taxes aren't going to go up. Now, how is that possible, right? How do you get $250 million and my taxes won't go up? And here's the way that it works. We have about $600 million in debt that is going to be retired over the next 20 years. And so probably 5 years from now, your taxes will go down a little bit. 7 years from now, they go down a little bit more. But we could take a portion of that $600 million that's going to be retired, and we can borrow $250 million, and your taxes will not be any different next year or the year after. You're just making a decision. You're not going to get a tax break in 2028 or 2029. And I'll come back to the same decision. How important is it to raise our children in neighborhoods without blight? And so we have the capacity to borrow the money. What we do need is a decision of the voters, because this is a major decision we make as a community. This is not something your elected officials can do. Under the law, we have to go to the voters, and we have to make our case as to why this is the right thing to do, and next March, we want to do that. Now, as much as I appreciate the federal government, there have been aspects of this federal funding that has driven me nuts, aside from all the newspaper stories that came with it. But the Fed said, you can only demolish in federally approved boundaries. And that means if you didn't live in one of those areas that was shaded, you didn't see any demolition. You know, people in the suburbs write about downtown and midtown gets everything and the neighborhoods get nothing. People in the neighborhoods know the truth. They say to me, how come on the north side of Puritan you're demolishing and on the south side of Puritan you're not? And I have to say, because the feds made us operate within boundaries. Was that fair? I either take the $265 million or I don't. Second, the Fed said even if you're in one of those shaded areas, you can only knock it down if the land bank owns the property. So if a private person has their house burned, our department condemns it, we can't use the federal money to knock it down because under their rules, the land bank doesn't own it. And so people say to me all the time, you came down my block, you had 2 burned out houses, you knocked down one, and you left the other one. You don't know what you're doing. And I have to say, actually, I do know what I'm doing. I'm following the federal rules. When I don't follow the federal rules, they write about me. When I do follow the federal rules, people say, you don't know what you're doing. This has been the program so far. But if we have our own funds, we can knock down in all the neighborhoods, and we can take the private houses, public houses. We can do this in the kind of rational way that you would. Here's the other thing. And so you all know this. I don't have to tell you. We got neighbors like this that haven't been touched on blight in years. I got Representative Cynthia A. Johnson is here. If she gives me one more lecture about where the boundaries are on demolition in her neighborhood, she is very vociferous. I want to be able to face her and say, I've got the funding to come in and respond to your constituents, and she'll be happier too, right? So here's the other thing. The federal rules do not allow local governments to give preference to their own city. The feds say the dollars belong to all the taxpayers. You can't give preference to your local city in the city of Detroit. And so we would like to build the capacity of Detroiters and Detroit companies, but we can't. And so for the last 2 years, let me show you what's happened. The percentage of the demolition contracts under the federal program awarded to Detroit-based businesses was 37%. The city side, the stuff that we did ourselves on an emergency basis, commercial basis, was 54%. Our ordinance says that you get an extra 5% bonus if you're headquartered in Detroit, another 5% on top of that if your entire company is based in Detroit. And so we can legally, on really all of our contracts, encourage people to build and grow in Detroit. And then to give an opportunity for African American entrepreneurs. If you look at what's happened on the minority-based businesses, again, the federal money under the federal rule has gone 37% to minority-based businesses, but what we've done in the city has been 50%. The federal money, all right? So the federal money will be all gone by spring, and we're going to be able to remove the blight from the city using Detroiters to rebuild Detroit neighborhoods. This is why I'm excited to get to this program. So, we know where they are. These are the 19,000 abandoned houses, these blue dots that we still got to go. We know they need to come down. $250 million plus the money we committed from bankruptcy. We committed in the bankruptcy to spend another $30 million a year toward residential demolition. It will allow us to get every one of these houses down by 2025. And we have another 8,000 houses that we'll be able to renovate. I really do believe that you will drive down the street in 2025, and unless the house happened to get caught fire last week, we will have abandoned houses, by and large, removed from the city of Detroit. Can you imagine our children growing up in a city like that? What do you think? Should we be doing that? And so, after 50 years, I don't want our children ever to walk down a street like that again, and I'm going to work as hard as I can to make that happen.